Welcome back. President Trump's border crackdown leading to a massive decline, not only in border crossers, but also in known gotaways. The Department of Homeland Security source revealing that the daily average of known gotaways is now 132 a day. That compares to more than 1,800 a day in fiscal year 2023. ICE announcing the arrest of several illegal alien gang members in Texas and one charged with sex crimes in Maryland. Border czar Tom Homan told me yesterday that southern border crossings are down better than 90% since President Trump took office. His deportation efforts, however, are facing internal resistance after a memo about ICE crackdowns in Los Angeles was leaked, and as a result, gang members were able to get away. Watch.
We think we found the source of the leak. It's under investigation right now by DHS. There's some information that tends to show that the second leak in the California operation may have been someone in the FBI. So when we find these people and we have the evidence to support a prosecution, that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't care what their political beliefs are. This isn't about politics. This is about the safety of our officers. It's only a matter of time if these leaks continue that our officers are going to walk into a place and be ambushed by someone who just don't care about life and are going to take these ICE officers on. Giving the bad guys a head up, we're coming, is going to just make the job much more dangerous. It's under criminal investigation. Those who are responsible will be held criminally responsible, and we'll prosecute them.
Joining me now is Florida Congresswoman Laurel Lee. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Your reaction to what's going on within. Did somebody at the FBI leak that and bust up the whole operation?
Well, that would be incredibly dangerous. It's very true that for internal plans about law enforcement operations to be out in the public, to get potentially into the hands of criminals, makes the job of law enforcement so much more dangerous. So it's absolutely right that if this happened, it should be investigated and the people who did it should be prosecuted. And the big thing that we're seeing here is that from day one, President Trump instituted policies, went back to the policies that we knew would work. He went back to remain in Mexico. He shut down the fraud that was happening through the CBP1 app, and it has reduced these border crossings so substantially. And what that shows us is that all along, this was something that the Biden administration could have done and chose not to.
Yeah,
it's also.
And I remember during the Eagle Pass situation when there were all those people under the bridge in Eagle Pass having just come over the border through Mexico. There were like 11,000 people a day coming in. I know that's not the average, but there was a time there that there were 10 and 11,000 people coming in one day. And we're down to just hundreds at this point.
And at that time, Border Patrol agents that were down there in those border communities weren't allowed to do their jobs. They were operating as travel agents, basically bringing these people into these centers, giving them sandwiches, taking them to cities across America, and they wanted to do their job. When we would go down with the Homeland Security Committee and the Judiciary Committee, they wanted to do their job. So President Trump is enabling us to go back to enforcing our laws and securing our borders. So it's so needed, and it's what the American people wanted us to do.
And the White House has now confirmed that repatriation flights to Venezuela have resumed. They resumed yesterday. ICE is trying to get the Tren de Aragua gang members and others out of America. What can you tell us about these flights?
Well, one thing that's important there is that what we see is President Trump is respected on the world stage. So these foreign nations and these leaders are willing to work with him to effectuate these types of flights and getting these people repatriated. The other thing is that these are the kinds of people that we're looking for and sending back. Violent criminals, people who have extensive criminal histories, people who have come to America and committed additional crimes. These are people that are a danger to American citizens, and it is vital that we find them, locate them, and get them out of our country.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you're going to be testifying in front of the Congresswoman's committee, right? So
yeah,
jump in
possibly in a couple of weeks. Congresswoman Lee, I think you hit the nail on the head with that this was really deliberate by the Biden administration, because there's really no argument that it was anything other than that. But it seems to me right now the major impediment to getting the most serious criminals not only arrested but removed from the country are these sanctuary cities. And we know what Pam Bondi is doing is withholding, DOJ funding and also looking at them for federal statutes like harboring and obstructions. But my question to you, what can Congress do to help aid in that? Is there a way to withhold additional funding from these sanctuary cities to make them want to cooperate or entice them to cooperate? Because I think that would be one of the most effective things that can be done, is to have those start cooperating with the ICE.
Absolutely. And that's something we need to call it what it is, which is lawlessness. The idea that state and local elected officials think they have an option to simply defy federal law is ludicrous. Congress absolutely has the ability to support similar efforts to what we're seeing from Attorney General Bondi. And where these cities are receiving federal funding, look at that and cut it off. We need every city, every state in America to be cooperating with federal authorities. I'll say I'm from Florida. My state is already doing this. Our legislature and our governor working on ensuring that state and local law enforcement are cooperating, detaining people who aren't in our country legally so that they can be transferred over to the custody of ICE and sent back where they come from, or kept in jail if that's where they belong. And this is the way it used to be before the Biden administration unraveled all of these policies and basically defied our laws. So absolutely, Congress has a role and can ensure that these cities who are trying to promote these policies and trying to defy federal law enforcement efforts are held to account.
Yeah, I mean, we also want to know where Congress has been in terms of cutting out the waste. We're seeing a lot now from Elon Musk and President Trump, and it's quite revealing. President Trump signed another executive order yesterday requiring federal agencies to cooperate with DOGE and its efforts to cut costs and shrink the size of government. The president welcomed Elon Musk to the Oval Office yesterday and gave him the stage. Here's what he said. Watch.
The two ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from $2 trillion to $1 trillion. And it's really two things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half. And I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized nonstop. But with the support of the president, we can cut the budget deficit in half from $2 trillion to $1 trillion.
Congressman, what do you think about that?
Well, I think he is touching on some things that are really important.
Yeah.
Modernization and the use of technology. So I can tell you, back when I was a federal prosecutor, we would prosecute benefit fraud cases. We would find people who were receiving VA benefit checks or Social Security checks for a deceased relative. But if you go one by one by one, we'll never get there. What President Trump and Elon Musk are focused on is using modern technology to actually review the data and identify these types of situations on scale. And that can make an enormous difference. And again, this is something that every American wants. No one wants waste and abuse and benefits going to people who aren't entitled.
Yeah, I mean, how do you explain some of these things that USAID, for example, USAID was sending money to? Were you aware of any of this?
So I was not aware that these were the types of beneficiaries and programs that were receiving these grant monies. And this really makes the point that we need to return to the proper functioning of the government, with Congress acting in its Article I responsibilities. Too much has been taken over by the administrative state and executive branch agencies who get money appropriated, but then really use their own efforts, their own political will to spend it in places that it just doesn't belong. So it is long overdue for us to crack down on this, identify where every single American tax dollar is being spent, and ensure that it is something that is appropriate, that is efficient, and that benefits the American people.
I mean, you can understand how viewers are upset. American citizens are saying, wait a second, you're a congresswoman, you're an elected official, and you didn't even know any of this stuff? I mean, $1.5 million for advancing DEI in Serbia. Okay, $2 million to fund sex changes in Guatemala, $7.9 million to a project that would teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language. Okay, up to $1 million in taxpayer money on a project to help disabled people in Tajikistan become climate leaders.
Well,
This is real. I'm looking at
Here
the
is
list
what-
from the White House. Okay? $20 million
Here's what-
on Alan Simpson, a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. Come on. You're an elected official, and you didn't even know this.
Well, here's what's important to know. Congress has been working every single day to conduct oversight, to get to the bottom of government censorship, wasteful spending, all of these kinds of things. Understand that in the Biden administration, we had no partner in the Senate, no partner in the White House. So what we could do is work on transparency and oversight, and that is what we were doing constantly in the 118th Congress to try to run to ground where these programs were.
Well-
Now, because we have President Trump in the White House, because we have executive agency heads who are partners to us, helping us identify where these programs are and where this waste is occurring, we can get so much done.
Well, look, you're reintroducing a bill to help law enforcement fight the fentanyl crisis, and this is important. Tell us about the bill. Thank you for reintroducing this and trying to stop the drugs coming into this country.
So as we know, fentanyl has been one of the things that is an absolute scourge coming through our open border, and it has been a tragedy in communities across America. This bill is focused on helping law enforcement. So secondary exposure to fentanyl is incredibly dangerous for the men and women of law enforcement. This bill is focused on helping them understand what to do so that they can safely handle and prosecute these cases. And second, to also provide federal government support to state and local law enforcement officers so that they can receive the training and education they need to safely do their jobs.
We will be watching your work. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thank you. Laurel Lee joining us this morning in Washington.